the original spritz, a mixology renaissance, and are gondola rides worth it? This week, we're in Venice, Italy.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this time, it's Venice, Italy, with Monica Cesarato. But first, do me a favor and rate and review the podcast on your podcast app. Just takes a second, and it helps other foodie travelers just like you find the show. And I've got 24 foodie travel guide ebooks available for download at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. The Portugal ebook is the best value, just $9.99 for a compilation of all 17 city guides to Portugal. It's a great Portuguese foodie adventure. Get yours at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. Monica Cesarato is the founder of the Cecchetti Tour of Venice, author of books about Venice, and host of Venice Talks podcast. Monica has just launched 2 cocktail tours in Venice, the Venice Classic Cocktails Tour and the Venice Mixology Cocktail Tour. You can find out more at venicecocktailtours.com. Monica tells me about the importance of fresh fruit in your cocktail, all the different cocktails that were invented in Venice, and we even talk a bit about mocktails. Plus, how to get the most out of your trip to Venice, and whether you should splurge for a gondola ride. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Monica Cesarato from VeniceCocktailTours.com. Welcome back to Destination Eat Drink. I was so glad to hear from you, and now I'm even more happy to get to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks.
I'm really excited to talk about cocktails and mixology and all of this stuff with your brand new tour. But before we get into that, I feel like you are my go-to expert person about Venice. And so it's been, I don't know, what has it been, like a year since we talked last when you had your book out about the Cecchetti places and whatnot.
It's only, I'm on my second book already, so that's fine. Okay, good. That's another thing we can talk about. I forgot about that.
Fantastic. So tell me, what's happening in Venice now? Anything new and exciting going on there that folks should know about before they head on over to Italy?
Well, right now we are in the middle. Obviously, I'm not sure when your show's going to go out, but right now for the next couple of weeks, we are right in the middle of a Venice Carnival. That is obviously the first ever carnival. That's Venice is where the carnival was born, and so the original one. So we are right in the swing of it right now at the moment with loads of hopefully nice events that are going to happen. The weather is actually very nice, so we're very lucky. Freezing cold, but nice. There is an introduction of the tax again, like last year, but on a longer period. This time, I think the city of Venice thinks that it worked. They think. We don't, but never mind, that's another story. And as far as I know, they decided to extend the dates. Nothing that people should worry about if they actually sleep in Venice, because if you sleep in Venice, this entry tax doesn't apply. It's only for the day trippers. So if you sleep outside of Venice and you come into the city on certain particular dates, which there is a calendar on the city of Venice, obviously has got it on their website, you have to register to come in. And I think they put the price up to €10 or something like that.
Wow.
I think it's one way that they think they can curb the problem with over-tourism. Last year, it wasn't a trial run. Personally, I don't think it worked. It's not that it didn't stop the people coming in. It didn't stop the wrong people coming in because unfortunately the day trippers, which are many times locals from the region, they still can go in if is not compulsory to book your entry. Is on a if I decide to do basis. So it just defeated the object because of the weekends it was packed with locals anyway. So
I was always wondering how they were going to do this because, it's a city. It's not like there's turnstiles where where they're checking
Yep.
your ticket. So it would have to be voluntary.
Yep.
So it seems to me like it's doomed to fail because most people are like, well, if I don't have to, why am I going to do it?
Well, I think it's one way. You see, the problem is that first, I don't think they are explaining it well enough. So a lot of people get confused. I don't know. It's just I don't think it's the way to stop over tourism. I've been saying this over and over and over. That I think, or if this can be one way, it should go hand in hand with a lot of other, marketing strategies like promoting on a big scale to convince people to stay here longer instead of just one night or 2 nights or day trips. But I think they say that I've interviewed a couple on my podcast, a couple of authority, people from the city authority, and they just said that but other city are gonna learn from what we're doing. I don't know. We'll see this year how it goes. Saying that they could have easily started now for Carnival since the weekend just passed. The city was absolutely packed. You couldn't walk in certain strategic points of the city. If it was a tax that needed to stop over tourism, that could have been a day to start with, and they didn't. So we're all wondering why, they do it. So,
Well, what would your advice be to a tourist who was coming to Venice and they were going to be a quote unquote good tourist? They were going to stay for a couple of days. But what would your advice be if they were trying to avoid these crowds that you're describing that sound kind of like, that would be difficult to navigate?
Well, yeah, put it like this. Yesterday, I had some clients on one of my tours, and they said to me, they came to me at the meeting point, and they said to me, "Oh my God, it only took us 20 minutes to come to you from our hotel today. It took us 3 hours yesterday to walk to the same spot because, of course, it was Sunday, it was a Carnival day, it was packed." Well, I would recommend. Well, first of all, I always say to people, do not come for 1 or 2 days. You need to come to Venice at least a minimum of 3. Because yes, it's true the city is small, but it's packed with things to do. Second, obviously, you need to go to San Marco Rialto. Of course, you cannot come to Venice and not do the point. But you don't need to do just that. There's so many islands. We got so many museums. There are so many areas of Venice that people rarely go and visit. And if people dilute themselves throughout the city, and bear in mind, in all this, Venice is divided in 6 districts, okay? That we call Sestiere from number 6 in Venetian. In each quarter, in each sestiere, we have got artisan restaurants, shops. Each sestiere is got its own little life. So you can easily stay away from San Marco and Rialto and really, really, really explore the real Venice. So, I think that people should do a little bit more research before coming over. And possibly, I would say, and I hope I'm not going to sound a bit too snob about this. Tell me if I am, okay? But I think people should start, when they book tours, when they look into research and stuff, don't base yourself only on content that is posted by people that came here on a visit, okay? Do your research. Go and see blogs, podcasts, videos, YouTube, whatever you want, of people that actually work and live in Venice. Because then you really get in touch with what's really happening here. Because otherwise, you only get the point of view as a tourist. So if a tourist had a bad experience in Venice, all you're going to hear from this person is bad things. If somebody came and have a great time, is going to rave about it. The middle ground where it tells you nitty-gritty, do's and don'ts, be careful with this, enjoy that. So I think it's nice to have, people that lives, in a city or in a country, not just people that come here and visit tea for maybe a couple of days and then they write a nice article and that's it. I don't know. Maybe I'm snob.
No, I don't think that's snobby at all. In fact, that's a lot of what we talk about here on the podcast, and why I like to talk to people like you, Monica, who live and work there, because you guys are the experts. Now, I also talk to people occasionally on the podcast who are popping from one place to another and bopping around and doing all that stuff. But this is where you get the real information that you want. And Let's dive. Well, you know what? Before we dive into your cocktails, there was one thing that I want to ask you about, because I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, wow, I've had Monica on the podcast several times now, and I don't think I've ever talked to her about gondola rides. And you talk about like the number one tourist thing that tourists want to do. And so I thought I should ask Monica, is a gondola ride something that is worth your time and worth the money? Because I understand they're kind of expensive.
Yeah.
Or is this something that we should pass on and do something else instead? So give us your opinion.
Okay.
What do you think?
Have we got about an hour for this?
Whatever you feel, Monica, you tell me.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let's put it like this. If you asked me this about 20 years ago, when I first got into doing blogging and stuff like that, my answer would have been, forget about the gondola. It's only, tourist trap. 20 odd years have passed on. I had the opportunity to go on a gondola many times because of the job I do. Funny enough, last weekend, I had the greatest privilege of actually being part of a christening of a gondola. Okay.
Wow.
And I got to say, yes, it is totally worthy to do a ride on a gondola, but let's explain a couple of things. First of all, gondola, as we see now, I'll give you a little bit of history if it's okay with you. Okay.
Of course.
Okay. So the gondola that we see now is obviously a tourist thing, but you have to remember that until about 60, 70 years ago, for centuries, the gondola was the equivalent of a cart. Okay. Or what you will use for transporting goods, people, animals. Okay. Every merchant in Venice, every household in Venice, every rich person in Venice will have one or two gondolas, okay, with his own gondolier, but they were used as means of public transport. Exactly like you will use a taxi, a bus, a cart if you're in the old days when people didn't have cars and stuff like that. Okay. And it's been in the last 50 years that it's become a tourist thing, because with the arrival of motorboats in the city, obviously it wasn't convenient anymore to use the gondolas as a transport for goods and animals or whatever. So it became a tourist thing. Now, it is a lobby. I agree with anybody. It's true. It is a lobby. There's only a certain limited number of gondoliers and gondolas in the city. The license is got to be earned. They got to pass a test. And generally, because it's a lobby, it's really hard to get into it. So generally, the people that apply for the license are the sons of gondoliers, the nephews of gondoliers, the brothers of gondoliers. It's a family kind of lobby thingy. I think we only have one or two women at the moment, so that's another sore point. But for the last, I think, 10 years now, maybe more, the actual price of gondola is strictly controlled, because they are part of an association that is controlled by the city of Venice. Okay, so the tariffs are in line. They're checked by the city. They cannot overcharge you. There is a price list. There is a certain price until 7 o'clock in the evening, and then it rises up because, of course, at nighttime everybody wants to rise. I'm not sure how much it costs now. I think it could be about 80, 90 euros per ride or something like that, and more after 7 p.m. But saying this, the ride is for up to 6 people. Okay?
Wow.
So if you split it in a group of 6, €90 for half an hour ride on, and I got to say, it is amazing, okay, because you get to see Venice from the water point of view. That is, if you think about it, Venice was born out of water, so you literally see it from the ground zero point, okay? So my suggestion usually is, when you are sitting at the hotel, having breakfast and stuff, and you make friends with the other tourists or whatever, check if somebody's going for a gondola ride in case you're only 2 people and stuff. See if you can, join another group. That way you get to split the price, okay? If price is a concern. But you need to do this before you arrive at the gondolier. You cannot just turn up on the queue and do it, because the gondolier is not stupid, okay? And they will say to you, no, it was 2 of you. So you need to arrive as a group already. But even though, if you think, even for 2 people, €90 for such an experience, and the gondoliers generally are very nice and friendly, and they will allow you to take photos, and they will help you take photos as well. My recommendation for take a gondola ride, though, is, if I was you, personally, because I have the opportunity to do it practically everywhere now in Venice, is not to do it on the Canal Grande, or at least not to do it in front of St. Mark's Square. Why? Because the water is very choppy, and you're gonna be hanging on for dear life, because even though it's really hard for a gondola to topple over, okay, because they're very safe, you when you go that you're not used to it, you feel like you're gonna get about every 2 seconds, so you're kind of hanging for dear life and thinking, oh my god, am I gonna die here? And you're not gonna enjoy the ride. So I think it's so much better to do it on the internal canals. They go slower. There are no the boats have got to go very slow, even the motorboats got to go very slow. And it's an amazing feeling for me to go through all the narrow canals and being literally, you can touch the walls. I think is an incredible feeling, and you really understand how Venice, what Venice is all about. About being literally sitting on sand and water. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, what great advice and great tips for folks who are going to Venice. Thank you for that. Let's hop into cocktails, because you started this new cocktail tour, and I'm wondering why you got interested in doing a cocktail tour. Is there something happening right now with mixology and cocktails in Venice that kind of got you thinking, let's do a cocktail tour?
Well, what's happening? Actually, the story is we need another hour for this. No,
okay,
so
part 5.
For the last 4 or 5 years, I cannot remember. I think it's 5 years or something like that. In Venice, every year, the people that organize the Florence Cocktail Week have organized also the Venice Cocktail Week. That it was one way. It was they brought it over just after COVID, on the wake of COVID, just to give a little bit of life to the city, because obviously nobody was coming, things were a bit rough for everybody, and it was a bit to get people to understand that in Venice, we have a big culture of bars and osterie and having to drink and drinking wine. Everybody knows. Ask an Italian who the biggest wine drinkers are, they immediately tell you Veneto people and Tuscan people. Okay, so to make people realize that in Venice there are large portions of cocktail bars in the hotels. The people don't realize, unless you stay in a hotel, but the outsiders don't realize that all of these bars are accessible, the cocktail bars, and they're really nice. Now, in all over Italy, we're having a mixology awakening, I think, or renaissance, let's say, because it's something that's happening all over Italy, I think, with rebirth of gin and whiskey, and then all of our Italian, bitters and amari, and, you name it, we got it. So on the wake of that, they started this Venice Cocktail Week, which I had the pleasure to take part many, many times. And I sacrificed myself, for the sake of research.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody got to do it. And unfortunately, it was me because I put on so much weight because of that. But never mind. My liver is not thanking me right now for that. And they decided not to do it for some reason this year. And last year, I was drinking with a friend of mine. I was drinking with a friend of mine with which we, she's my partner in crime. We go often to events and things together. And we were discussing the fact that everybody now is doing the Cicchetti tour, the Baccarat tour, which, by the way, I'm invented, but never mind.
Right.
And I get always be annoyed when people start copying me, but doing it on a grand scale. So I said, maybe it's about time we do something else. She said, oh, what do you think? I said, tell you what, we should organize a cocktail tour. She loved the idea. And we started to poof the ideas down to see how it could be done and stuff. Couple of weeks later, a friend of mine that I met during the Venice Cocktail Week from UK, she's American, she's okay. She runs a really, really fantastic podcast dedicated just to cocktail. It's called Lush Life Manual. She's huge. She contacted me and said, oh, Monica, let's go for a drink because I have an idea I want to propose to you. She came and drank. We went to this bar that I was testing for my tour. And she never said what she wanted from me. She just sat there and I said, look, I need to go to this bar for business. Let's meet there. I'll have my meeting and then we'll have a drink together. So she's sitting there just listening to what I'm saying. And I'm proposing to the barman this idea about doing a cocktail tour. And she all of a sudden looks at me and she starts laughing her head off. And I look, what's going on, Susan? And she goes, oh my God, it's exactly what I want to propose to you to start doing together. And I thought, you kidding me? Because she already does in London, So the three of us came together, we sat down, we worked it out, and we came up with two tours because Susan wanted to do something a bit more on the classic side. Because, Venice is famous for some classic cocktails like the Bellini, the Scroppino, the spritz, of which I'll tell you in a minute, okay? And I wanted to do something a bit more about mixology, because of the Venice Cocktail Week, because I managed to get to meet so many barmen and to go to so many wonderful cocktail bars in the city. So we decided to combine the two things and we created two tours. So one is Venice Classics, where we go on a 3-hour walking tour, explaining people stopping in 4 locations, which I'm sorry, I cannot divulge.
No, of course not.
People need to come to the tour, but people get to try the typical spritz, but in a special way. They get to try the Bellini, but in a special location. And then a special type of coffee, a special cocktail with coffee, and a special wine, because we decided, we cannot avoid talking about wine when we're talking when it's Venice. And instead, the mixology one, instead is we go into 3 locations where we explore how mixology has changed in Venice in the last few years. So they're very upbeat, brand new bars with fantastic atmosphere and great vibes.
When I think of Venice, I think of these ornate palaces and churches and traders' mansions and things like that. What are the bars like? Are they also really fancy and ornate like that?
Well, funny enough, I think we only got 2 or 3, maybe 2, maybe 3, real only cocktail bars. The rest are all inside hotels. Okay, so yes, they're very fancy. But as a friend made me notice yesterday, we were talking, she was saying to me that Venice is very particular because the structures outside, it's old. It's an old city, 1600 old city. Every building is at least 300-400 years old, at least, if not more. Okay, but the interiors many times get totally changed and are very contemporary, very modern, very new. So it's very interesting because sometimes we go into bars inside of these cocktail bars, and it's your classic, as you say, with the beautiful chandeliers and very ornate, Gothic, Baroque kind of style. And then you go in certain locations where they've been totally changed. So from outside, you look at it and you think, oh, this is an old place. And then you walk in and it's, whoa, super modern. So it's interesting, different locations, different feelings.
When I think about drinking, whether it's wine or beer or cocktails in Italy, it's never just about the alcohol. It's also about the food that goes with it. So talk with me a little bit walk me through a little of what kind of food, how do you think about pairing a snack or a bite with a cocktail?
Yeah, that is the point. So generally we leave it to the bars. So it's going to be a mix of snacks and cicchetti. And we usually leave it to the barman and the locations to pair the food. And it changes every time because Venice is a city that lives very much on seasons. Okay. Thankfully, we're very lucky that our chefs, all over the city and everybody try to be, still work on season. And we're very lucky that in Venice, we have the island of Sant'Erasmo, that is a beautiful location where it gives tons of vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not easy because I remember once I went to do a gin class where we were pairing from the beginning from the appetizer to the dessert, gins, cocktails made with gin. It's not easy, okay, but it can be done. I think in a city like Venice where we have cicchetti as well, it's easier because, you got so much choice. So, yeah.
Spritz is ubiquitous. I mean, I just got back from Malta and every place has spritz. You go into America, every place has spritz. But I remember you saying on an earlier episode that, when you're in, am I right remembering this, that when you order your spritz in Venice, you should order it with Select rather than Aperol?
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, people can go back to the episode and listen. But otherwise, I'll give you a little refreshment course on spritz. So actually, spritz was born in Venice, even though the Padova people say he was born there. But trust me, he was born in Venice. We in the 1800s with the Austrians. The Austrians came. They found the white wines of Veneto a bit too strong, so they used to dilute it with sparkling water and a lemon zest. And they call it spritzen, that means to dilute in Austrian. Many years later, in the end of the 1990s, I think it was 94, 95, something like that, from a restaurant bar called Antico Calice, they're still there near Rialto, a gentleman there decided to give a little twist to this concoction of water and wine and added Select. Select is a bitter, herbal-made, alcoholic drink made in Venice since 1920, created this dark red concoction. All of a sudden, the Venetians loved it because, it's slightly bitter than, maybe other things. People loved it. It was refreshing. It started to become the new drink in town. Then Aperol Campari, which used to be in Padova, caught on the idea and had the money to go worldwide with a heavy marketing campaign. Now everybody knows the Aperol Spritz or Campari Spritz, whatever you want it. But yes, if you want to do the real thing, you should do the Select or Cynar. Cynar is, again, I'm not sure if it's from Venice, but definitely a Veneto bitter made with artichokes.
Oh, wow.
And I got to say, I'm not a lover of spritz, I got to admit, because I have my own drink. That is a version of a spritz, but it's not spritz. That is called a cinico. That is made with prosecco, lime, mint, and cinnamon liqueur. And the cinnamon liqueur is produced in Padova, and they don't sell it anywhere outside of the Veneto region. So this drink you can only drink in a particular location in Venice, which I'm not going to tell you which one it is, because if people want to know, they need to come on a tour with me.
And then we've got the Bellini. The Bellini was all, people may not realize all these drinks were invented in Venice. Bellini was invented in Venice too, right?
Let me give you a list. Bellini, Rossini, Tintoretto, Mimosa, all born here. So the Bellini was actually born here in 1948. Okay. He was created by Giuseppe Cipriani. Giuseppe Cipriani is the father of Arrigo, was the father of Arrigo Cipriani. He was a head barman at Harris Bar. Okay. And he decided to, barman have always experimented stuff, so on. He created this drink made with, originally was Prosecco and the pulp of white peaches, okay? He called it Bellini because the pink color of the pulp of the drink as it ended up reminded him of the dress of an angel in a painting of Bellini. And it was a season drink that you're supposed to be drinking only when you have peaches, okay? And then once Harris Bar opened a place also, I think it's in New York, it became also, they start to introduce it there as well. Somebody got involved that he was exporting the peaches in between the two, between Italy and America. And all of a sudden, the Bellini became very famous. From the Bellini, always here, and I think always in the Harris Bar, I'm not sure on this, so don't quote me on this, okay? They decided to create a Rossini, Tintoretto, and Mimosa. So the variant of the Bellini Rossini is made with the pulp of strawberries, the Tintoretto with pomegranate, and the Mimosa with oranges. But let's remember, they should always be made with fresh fruits. So, unfortunately, nowadays everybody uses sometimes ready-made juices and stuff like that. So a real cocktail should be made with fresh squeezed, fresh pureed fruits.
I'm seeing a lot of mocktails also, and I'm really excited because the creativity behind the mocktails is catching up with cocktails, so you can have a mocktail that is really interesting and not just, like when I was growing up, when we were kids, you'd get like a Roy Rogers or a Shirley Temple, and it's basically fruit juice and soda. and that was what the kids would have while the parents were having like an old fashioned or something. But now
I love old fashioned, by the way. I'm an old fashioned person.
Now people are getting creative with mocktails, and occasionally I don't want
and
alcohol.
They cost as much as cocktails as well now. And
that's what drives me crazy, because I'm like,
I know, because I'm thinking, hey, Lisa, if I got to spend the money, I'll spend it on the alcohol.
So, some places you're seeing like maybe a cocktail's 12 and a mocktail is 8. And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable. But if you're going to charge 12 for a mocktail, I mean, that's just price gouging, because you don't even have the expense of the alcohol shot going in there. Give me a break.
Well, okay. This depends. Okay. I saw some mocktails on menus on one of the places where I actually take people on a normal the cocktail tours, where the price is the same. But then when I saw the list of ingredients and the presentation, and I actually understand the price, also because you have to remember, fruits is not exactly cheaper anymore.
Yeah, right.
So when you start adding a certain kind of, I don't know, if I start giving you the gold leafy or the thing, I can see them trying to justify the price. It's not justified when they give me, as you say, some, what do you get, ready-made juice with a little bit of soda. No, in which case it's not. But when it comes to, they had to squeeze, they had to prepare, they had to get certain kind of fruits that maybe are not readily available, or I don't know, with some other thing, syrups and stuff. So I understand it, so only to, as you say, in Italian we say to rompere una lancia, but I cannot it doesn't come to me in English what is to give some support to the barman. I mean, just not to go against them altogether, but
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, Monica, this has been a delightful talk, and I'm really glad that you guys are doing the Venice Cocktail Tours at venicecocktailtours.com. Folks should look that up. from your description alone, it's got me wanting to go to Venice and drink some cocktails. So
you need to come to Venice. You keep saying you're coming to Venice, and you never do.
I know.
You're going all over Italy, all over Europe, but you never come to Venice.
You totally called me on that, Monica, and it's fair enough. I mean, I have no defense for that argument.
I know. You need to come also before they do the tax as well.
Oh, that could be a real Italian and dodge some taxes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just crazy. I just think, I just hope the city is gonna come up with some other strategies, because right now I think we're a bit on the, we want the tourists, we want to create the events, but we're not. I don't know. I was involved with in producing 2 documentaries, not 1 but 2, which I'm very proud of. But it was interesting to see how basic things that I take for granted in Venice, people were going, "Oh, is that how you do it here?" And we're going like, yeah. Just logistics, going around with a film crew on a boat. Okay. But everybody will think, oh yeah, you just get on a boat. You have got no idea the amount of bureaucracy I had to go through just to get crew, people, and equipment on boats. It is crazy. And so I think we need, the city of Venice needs a good shake-up from the point of view of its city authorities, but I'm not sure we're gonna get it. But never mind, that's another episode.
Yeah, right. Do an episode on the bureaucracy of Venice.
Yeah, well, it'll take me like a whole series.
Yeah, right, a whole season maybe of shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's been great talking to you and great catching up with you, Monica. Thanks again for reaching out, and thank you so much for being on Destination Eat Drink. It's always so much fun. I've got a big smile on my face from talking to you.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. It's always nice coming back. Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.
Okay, that's Monica Cesarato from Venice Cocktail Tours. You can book your cocktail excursion at venicecocktailtours.com. How fun would that be? Cocktails in Venice. And if you want to hear more from my conversation with Monica, I have the full interview available for my Substack members at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Monica and I talk about the wine of the Veneto region and, of course, Prosecco. You can become a Substack member at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in Cuba for Ropa Vieja and Tostones with travel legend Joseph Rosendo. Until then, I've got tons of great foodie travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a story about a beer that calls the people of Bruges, Belgium, crazy. You can find out why by reading the story at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I've also got a new video out. This one's about Malta. We visit an ancient archaeological site, sample the local street food called pastizi, and much more. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or go to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. And don't forget my foodie travel guides to cities in Portugal, Spain, and lots of other places, including the brand new foodie guide to Bruges, Belgium, are available for download now. You can get yours at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.